Cheers, my friends. Hello, everyone. I am not going to waste any time. I know lives can be cumbersome sometimes, so I want to make sure we get some of this painted and we have some paint therapy. So I'm Carrie with Carrie Lou Furnishings. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all under the Carrie Lou Furnishings handle. And then my website is carrieloufurnishings.com. I actually just recently brought on an inventory manager for my website specifically, so that my website will always be up to date for you guys. Here's a panther. He's decided to participate. In case you guys wonder about my concerns with painting indoors, this guy and his furry brother and sister are three of my concerns with painting indoors, but it's winter in Ohio, even though today it's 61 degrees. I could have absolutely painted outside. It's also dark. So here we are. All right, today I would just like to talk about growth. It feels like a very appropriate topic to start with, being that we're kind of heading into a new year. So let's get started. Today's topic is growth. We are coming upon a new year, but even more so than that, we are coming upon the end of a decade. I keep hearing that, and it's like my mind can't even quite wrap around it. I know you guys have probably all seen like the decade challenges on Facebook, people posting, you know, what they look like and how their life has changed over the last 10 years. But one of the things that really rings true in my life is that if I really think back through the last 10 years, a lot of the growth that I've done has been more reactionary. Definitely not proactive and intentional. So, you know, I've gone through a lot of things that life kind of threw at me. And I grew from it and I learned from it and I did, you know, I maybe did things differently, but what I'm hoping to do in the coming years is really be more proactive and intentional about that growth. So I thought it would be fun, kind of as we're thinking back through the last 10 years and we're learning about growth together today, that I tell you a story. I really believe, I've come to believe, I guess I should say, that life either gives you a win or it gives you a lesson. So life gives you a win or it gives you a lesson. That word sounds a lot more empowering than failure, right? You either win or you lose. You either succeed or you fail. I honestly think you either succeed or you learn. I can't say I always thought that way, but I have certainly come to feel like that was so. So I really kind of want to talk you guys through one of the biggest things that was a learning process for me, that was not born of success, in hopes that maybe you guys can get something from it. I know a lot of you guys know me as a manager in my corporate job. It's almost uncomfortable for me to meet people as a manager, rather than the people that have kind of seen the journey along the way, because it was quite a long, strange trip. Story time. Closer to the beginning of that 10-year period of time, I had decided I wanted to be a manager. This was not something that I wanted to be my whole life. I kind of grew up with the philosophy of like management being the man. I don't know if any of the rest of you feel like that or have felt like that before, that manager types weren't always your favorite people. unpainted side. Thanks, babe.
You're welcome.
Okay, so 10 years ago, I kind of decided that I wanted to be a manager. I didn't grow up feeling like management was in my repertoire of career prospects. But when I got to corporate America, I had a lot of great managers. And those great managers showed me that being a manager could be really impactful to people. And though I had graduated college thinking I wanted to go into social work, I actually realized I could make a lot of impact in management as well. And so I had decided that I wanted to be a manager. One very helpful director told me that she would not give me a management position yet, but she would make me a floor supervisor. So we call them team leads at my company. So I took a lateral move to become a team lead. She said, I just want you to do this job for 6 months and then you'll be ready to be a manager. I said, okay, cool. In 6 months, I'll be ready. I'll be ready to roll. Now, if there was a narrator present, this was the point in which he would say, in 6 months, she was not ready. In 6 months, I was not ready. Actually, I ended up in that position for 3.5 years. During that time, hold on to your hats, folks, I applied for not 1, not 2, but 9 management positions. 9. Like, I was at a point where I was gonna have to take off my shoes and start counting them with my feet. I was running out of hands. Kept applying. So eventually I gave up. You know, hey, I thought I wanted to be a manager. I guess it's not in the cards. So I actually went back to my old job in my old department. Now, ironically, and how, you know, the universe works in mysterious ways, as soon as I went back to my old department, a management opportunity opened, and I was actually approached to apply for it. It was hilarious because it was like I finally got to a point where I was like, forget it. And that's when the universe was like, okay, it's time. But it hasn't been the time in the last 9 positions I applied for. Nope, sure hasn't. Now it is. You know, you might think this is the happy ending, but you'd be wrong. What I didn't know was, and what actually nobody knew at the time, was that very soon after me getting this management position, the department would go through a reorg. They consolidated all of the teams across the country into big nationwide teams, and we had to reapply for our jobs, and they picked only a couple people to lead the national team. It evolved into a much bigger position than I was prepared for. And I ended up reporting directly to a vice president, and I sort of felt like I was walking around in my mom's shoes. So I was like, oh crap, I gotta do this. I gotta do this, man. This is what I've been trying for years and years. I can't fail. Certifications, got certifications, worked my tail off, did all the things, bought new software, was ready to rock the socks off of this new position. My interview review came, and it was the worst review I'd ever gotten in my life. And I was devastated. When I talked to my boss about it, he was this man of few words, but the words that he would use just would stick with you. And what he said was, you were too focused this year on impressing me and not focused enough on serving your people. And that is a leadership philosophy I have carried with me to this day. So the lessons here. I'd always been in a energy of proving myself, trying to prove myself, trying to be impressive. And I felt like being the learner wasn't leading. but I was wrong. So for those of you out there who are trying to prove yourself to the world, I would work instead on trying to learn from all the people around you. I had to stop and restructure and do some learning. I'd been trying for years to prove myself, and part of that was getting the position that I work for and then keeping the position that I work for. But after all that, I ended up taking a demotion. I ended up identifying mentors. I have continued to ask questions ever since. I learned from everyone around me. That humility that you have to learn from every single person you're around is sometimes hard to swallow, but it is absolutely fundamental. I don't believe there's a person on this earth that you can't learn something from. And I did a bunch of stuff nobody would do. I worked weird hours. I did assignments nobody else would do, was getting up at times at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to complete reports, to make deadlines, when I'm sure, and I've experienced since, other people would just ask for an extension or ask for help. Not that I think asking for help is important, but in these instances, I was just sacrificing my time, sacrificing my priorities, realizing that I needed to become very humble in order to grow. So that's the whole, you have to bury yourself in dirt in order to bloom. That's the part people don't want to do. They just want to go out into the sunlight and drink a fresh glass of water and grow. And it's like, no, you got to bury yourself in the dirt. There are 3 reasons people don't grow. They lack self-awareness. And I would say that was very indicative of myself in this story. I thought I was ready to lead people years before. Now looking back, I was ready to lead people. And that was partly because there were periods of time in there, both that I just lacked self-awareness, but also periods of time in there where I couldn't see my potential. So that's one of the things that I really strive to do with the people around me now, is helping them see their own potential. Because when you really lean into your gifts, magic happens. They value comfort over growth. So I know lots of people who would tell me that they love to learn and grow. But if it's learn and grow, but disrupt their comfort level, they'll pick their comfort level. So that's a hard one to swallow. You have to get uncomfortable to grow. I actually recently worked with a girl who was crying in my office, and she was saying, I don't know if I want to take this position. It's with a whole other group of people that I don't know. It's with people who I haven't built relationships with. It's with a client that I'm not familiar with. And then she stopped and she looked at me and she said, "You're just going to tell me that all of this discomfort is good for me." I'm like, it is. Being uncomfortable is where the magic happens. And it's not the path of least resistance, that's for sure. So they can't see their potential. They value comfort over growth. And last, they're not willing to make the sacrifices needed to level up. So you have to often sacrifice your ego. You have to sacrifice your time. You have to do a hard look at your priorities. And sometimes you have to sacrifice your level of expertise. A lot of times to grow, you have to go into environments where you're not the expert. I am absolutely in that space with this business right now. I can sit here and show you how to paint this beautiful jewelry armoire and answer a lot of your questions, but there's a lot of things I'm still learning. And I hope in the coming months to continue to learn for you and serve you better. But I will always be honest with you about what I am the expert in and what is in my wheel of expertise and what is outside of that. So keep in mind, caterpillar has to hole up inside a gooey, dark chrysalis all by itself, and then fight its way out before it earns its wings. So it's not comfortable. It's not always fun to go through. Again, you don't learn from your wins. You learn from those times that things are more difficult. But the more intentionally that you really look at yourself and pursue your areas of growth, the more successful you'll be, and the more the world will benefit from your unique gifts. So I'm gonna continue to work on this, but I will let you go for this week. Hopefully you found this valuable. I have topics picked out for the next 12 weeks so far. So hopefully I'll catch you next week at 8 o'clock here on Thursday nights on Paint Therapy. And in between, again, you can find me on Carrie Lou Furnishings on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and at www.carrielou.furnishings.com. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Weren't always, ooh, I'm about to drop this whole thing. I got these handy little furniture wheelie things, but you have to keep the furniture on the wheelie things for it to work. Okay.